All right, let's get into it. You see all the headlines about a company like Eli Lilly, right? But the real story, the stuff that actually matters, is usually buried deep inside their official documents. So today, we're giving Lilly its Q3 2025 health checkup, and we're going straight to the source, the company's own financial report, the Form 10Q.
So how in the world do you take the pulse of a company this massive? I mean, it's not like you can just ask it how it's feeling. Nah, you've got to run the tests. You have to look at the cold, hard data. And just like any good doctor would, you start with the vitals. You know, the big top-line numbers that give you a snapshot of the patient's overall health. So what's the very first number we're seeing on the chart? Wow, plus 54%. That is the year-over-year revenue growth. In the world of giant multi-billion-dollar companies, a number like that isn't just healthy, it's practically superhuman. And just look at the scale of this jump. We're talking about going from $11.4 billion in one quarter last year to $17.6 billion this year. That is not just growth, my friends. That is a full-blown financial explosion. That's an extra $6 billion in revenue in just 12 months. Okay, so to really understand what's behind these unbelievable vitals, here's our game plan. First, we're going to find the engine behind this crazy growth. Then, we'll see how they're spending all that cash to bet on the future. After that, we have to look at the side effects, the legal issues and pricing pressures. And finally, we'll try to give our final diagnosis. All right, let's find the cause. Where is all this incredible strength coming from? You just don't see 54% growth out of nowhere. There has to be a powerful engine under the hood firing on all cylinders. So this table is pulled right from their report, and it tells us a lot. See that one category, cardiometabolic health? It's just completely dwarfing everything else. It's pretty obvious the answer is hiding in there. And when we zoom in, the picture gets crystal clear. This isn't some broad success across dozens of products. Nope. It's basically two drugs, Mounjaro and Zepbound. Look at that. Together, they make up nearly 60% of the company's entire revenue for the quarter. Let's just let that sink in for a second. Mounjaro, a single drug, brought in $6.5 billion in one quarter. To put that in perspective, that single drug's revenue is bigger than the annual GDP of dozens of countries. It's just massive. And right behind it, its partner drug, Zepbound, kicks in another $3.6 billion. This isn't just a successful product launch. It's a history-making one-two punch that is fundamentally changing the entire industry. So here's the absolute key takeaway. Combined, these two drugs are a $10 billion per quarter engine. That's it. That's the core of the story. Everything else, the crazy growth, the huge profits, it all comes back to the unbelievable success of these two products. Okay, so we've seen the incredible strength they have right now. But a truly healthy patient doesn't just feel good today, right? They invest in their long-term health. So what is Lilly doing with this giant mountain of cash to make sure they stay healthy for years to come? Well, they're pouring it right back into the lab. R&D spending is way up, from $2.7 billion to $3.5 billion just for the quarter. This is a classic move in pharma. You use the money from today's blockbuster drugs to find tomorrow's so you don't get caught with nothing when the patents eventually run out. And they're not just doing the research themselves. The report shows this huge expense called acquired IP R&D. What's that? Well, in plain English, it means they're going shopping. They're buying up promising research and cool tech from other companies before it's even become a real product. So how much are they spending on this shopping spree? In the first 9 months of the year alone, they've dropped almost $2.4 billion buying up this kind of early-stage innovation. They are being incredibly aggressive about buying their future. And this isn't random, it's a really calculated strategy. They're buying into totally cutting-edge stuff like gene editing for heart disease, but they're also protecting their core business with a next-gen obesity drug called orforglipron. And at the same time, they're pushing into huge areas of need like Alzheimer's and cancer. It's a very clear plan to make sure they don't become a one-trick pony. But of course, no health checkup is complete without talking about the risks. And when you have a treatment this powerful, you have to expect some pretty serious side effects. And believe me, the 10Q lays them out in detail. So you see this kind of dense legal language buried in the report. This is the forward-looking statement section. It's designed to be hard to read, but this is exactly where the company tells you what actually keeps its lawyers up at night. So let's just cut through all that legal jargon. What are the real-world worries that could seriously impact Lilly's long-term health? And here are the big ones. First, there's enormous pressure from the government to lower drug prices, especially from the Inflation Reduction Act. Then you've always got patents expiring, which means cheaper generics can come in and compete. And on top of that, they're facing a storm of lawsuits, both for older drugs like insulin and now for their new blockbusters, Mounjaro and Zepbound. All while regulators are watching their factories like a hawk to make sure they can keep up with demand. It's a lot. Yeah, when you dig into the legal section of the report, you realize they're fighting a war on multiple fronts. They're in court against consumers over insulin prices. They're battling the government over a drug discount program. And now they have to start defending their golden geese, Mounjaro and Zepbound, from a whole new wave of lawsuits. Each one of these is a huge risk. So, after looking at the vitals, the source of its strength, the investments in the future, and all those serious side effects, what's the final diagnosis? Well, it's really a tale of two different patients in one body. On one hand, the company is showing almost superhuman strength, record revenue, dominant drugs, and smart reinvestment. But on the other hand, it has some serious underlying conditions, intense pricing pressure, a ton of legal battles, and the constant challenge of just keeping up with its own success.
And that really brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? These new drugs from Lilly are, without a doubt, a powerful cure, both for millions of patients and for the company's bottom line. But the real test, the big question going forward, is this. Will that cure be strong enough to overcome all of the mounting side effects? Because as this report makes perfectly clear, the answer to that question will define Eli Lilly's future.